Hello girls, I hope you're coping with your learning English at home. I know it's difficult when you are set work on Show My Homework and you're not sure what to do, so I've decided to make a short video to help you. This is my first attempt, as you can see, and I'm not very good. I don't have much equipment, so I don't have a stand for my phone. As a result, it's a bit wobbly. Forgive me. And I sometimes say ums and ahs, but that's, I'm afraid, because I haven't written out a speech. So this is to for you to mark your own work. I can't possibly mark 200 plus pieces of work on computers, and it's very, very difficult to do this with, because it would need to be personal comments on each answer. Furthermore, this can be marked by you yourself if you know what I'm looking for, because this is an exercise in finding facts, in analysis and finding comparisons, and in explaining clearly what you need. So you should be able to do this and mark it just from what I've written. This is a very good way of learning, girls. You don't need a mark from the teacher. Self-assessment is being honest about yourself, having a look at your work and saying, this is how I could have improved. Ah, I see what she means now. I'm going to try and remember that next time. So, as you can guess from the first slide, which I've already got up, our topic is non-fiction writing. You're very familiar with fiction writing because we have studied poetry and plays and novels, and we enjoy fiction writing. But non-fiction writing is all around us, and it can be equally fun and interesting. We find it in newspapers and magazines, in biographies, autobiographies, blogs. You read it every day in your textbooks when you read a history or geography textbook. We see it in speeches, we see it in letter writing. This is people writing facts, but in an interesting and well-ordered way, in a well-structured way. And this is what we need to look at, how they get across information in an interesting way, an engaging way. Excuse me. So, non-fiction also has a purpose. Obviously, we are the audience, but the purpose is either to inform us of something, to persuade us to do something, or to advise us to do something. So, inform, you might well get a lot of information printed in your textbooks, for instance. You can have information given in a biography, as we see here in a semi-autobiography, where we learn a lot about life in the 19th century. We can be persuaded by our non-fiction in advertising, in speeches, and we are also given advice in non-fiction, which is it's a mixture in a way between inform and persuade, and you might get it in a letter telling or suggesting how you should behave. Oh, sorry about this. Right, to have a look at the passage in front of us, you should have read it, Lark's Rise to Canterford, and we're told the first activity is the writer creates a clear picture of a meal by giving us many details. Identify these details by using a chart under the following headings. So we've got to recognize information and be able to set it out in a logical and sensible way. And in order to do that, they have given us the 4 topics that we're to put it under. The content of the meal, how the meal is prepared, how the table was organized, and the behavior at the table. Now you can make a chart or just make 4 different paragraphs, underline and lay out the facts. And this is what I've got ahead of you now. Right, the content of the meal. We're told that there are 3 main ingredients, that they are bacon, vegetables and flour. that's really all you need to get for an answer like that. It's a simple answer given in the first paragraph. You can write, if you like, more detail, but generally you don't need to. That's what the content is. Next one is how the meal was prepared, and this requires a little bit more careful reading and a little bit more information. Now, it's a good idea when you're doing something like this to look out for bullet points almost and collect them, a bit like you are listing the information one needs for following a recipe or something like that. This clarity of thought is what we really want to see. You don't need to put the bullet points in your answer, but you can then put them into clear separate sentences. So, looking at the ones that I've got on my page here, and you can always pause this video if I'm speaking too quickly. Firstly, everything was cooked in one utensil. A 3-legged pot is the utensil, hung on a hook in the chimney over the fire. Now, you don't really have to understand all of that, but for your information and because it's interesting, people did used to cook in their chimneys as well as sit and warm their little toes. And the hook in the chimney was so that you could hang by a chain a great big pot, which would be like a cauldron, a bit like a witch's cauldron, over the flames and cook. So you don't need all that information, but I'm just telling you that for your own self. What you do need is what I've got on the page in front of you. Secondly, the ingredients were separated out. The ingredients being bacon, and then the vegetables were put in one net, and the potatoes in another net. The roly-poly was wrapped carefully in a cloth to keep it separated from the other things. Then the water was to be kept simmering, and each item was added carefully at the right time. For example, potatoes needed to go in before cabbage. The bacon would go in probably really early because it takes a long time to cook. You, again, don't need to write all those things, but I'm just telling you that so that you understand why those things are there. So there they are. The items are clearly laid out, clearly stated how the meal was prepared. Okay, it's all there in the passage. Next question was how the table was organised. Now, reading on further in the passage, we're told that everyone sat down to eat at the table. Again, as I see a piece of information, I'm bullet pointing it. The table was spread with a clean cloth, and there were knives and 2-pronged forks. I put in the forks because I thought that was an interesting thing because it's different from our forks, which are usually 3 or 4 prongs. Sometimes, if there wasn't space at the table for everyone, the children would sit on stools, using a chair as a table. Probably they were too small to reach up to the table, or else sit on the doorstep with their plates in their laps. Again, the description that I've just given to explain things doesn't need to be there, but you might be able to work some of these things out yourself just by using your intelligence. 2-pronged forks. We don't use 2-pronged forks anymore. Our forks definitely have more than that. Why would the children be sitting on stools when there's a chair? Because they're too short, and so the chair's their table. Just little things like that. But you don't need to put in that understanding. That's just for you to understand. Behaviour at the table. Now again, here are my bullet points. Everyone sat down to eat. The children were given their share, no picking or choosing. Father had the largest portion. The children ate in silence, except for please and thank you. And only the parents could speak if they wanted to, but they usually did not. And you've completed that task, and I bet already you are thinking, almost in preparation for activity 2 today, how different it is to today. So in order to assess the detail you've noted, you need to draw on your own experience. What do you consider to be a typical family meal of today? Describe it in detail using the same headings as you did in your chart in activity 1. So we go back to those, whoops, I'm going too far, whoops, oh dear. This is where I'm not very good at computers, as you can tell. Don't laugh at me now. You're just going to have to put up with it. I thought I was doing quite well. Okay, so straight away, contents of the meal. You need to think about what meal you eat at meal times. And I very much doubt it's bacon, vegetables and flour. You're all going to eat different things. For me tonight and for my supper, I had some meat, and I had potatoes, and I had a green vegetable and carrots, and I had some strawberries. It's very different. Each one of us have different things. Perhaps you're a fast food girl. Perhaps you eat a lot of rice and peppers. Anyway, moving on. The next thing was, how was the meal prepared? That again, you can think, okay, how was mine cooked? Oh yeah, it went in the microwave. Or it went on the stove. Oh, I had a frying pan and several pots. And yes, I cooked them over and I used the timer, etc. You can use these to get your own meal, how it was done. Next one. Can I get there, Mrs. Benson? Okay. How was the table organized? Think about it. Did you all come sit and eat at the table? Probably not. Probably people ate as they came in often. A few people ate together. Did you have a clean tablecloth on it? Or did you just move a few things off the table and clear a space? Did you even come to a table, or did you sit in front of the TV and eat on your lap, or did you take a plate up to your bedroom? We are all very different again there today, to show you the differences. Woo, sorry girls. And how do I turn over the page? There we go. Oh, blimey. Behaviour at the table. Now, did you all sit down to eat? Or, as I say, did some people stand and eat? Or did you run backwards and forwards? Did the children run around a little bit and eat a bit of a mouthful? Children were given their share when they were picking and choosing. Did that happen? Or were you able to say, I don't like fish fingers, I want this, I want that? Did father have the largest portion, or was he even not at the table at the time? Did you eat in silence? Highly unlikely. Did you remember your manners? Did you all get down as and when you felt like it? And certainly, I'm sure it wasn't only the parents who were speaking. So you can work out quite quickly how different your life should be. Your note should help you to see some similarities and differences between life in the late 19th century and today. And so you could highlight those and number them. There'd be a lot of differences, some similarities, but some differences. Which leads us on to activity 4. Now, activity 4 was a case of finding similarities and differences. And being able to compare is really important skill in English all the way up. And that's what we're introducing you to here. So, the similarities and the differences, you had to find evidence. First 3 were given to you by on the paper. They had a smaller range of food. Example, they had bacon, vegetables and flour as their main ingredients. And then I've added, we have many different choices of meat, fish, vegetables and fruit. We can eat something different each night. They cooked in a different way. They cooked on a huge pot as the evidence over the fire. And I've added, well, we have microwaves and ovens, ready meals and takeaways. Food tasted good then as does now. and the quota's appetizing meal. They all ate together when the family came home. The whole family would sit down, even if there wasn't enough room at the table. We often eat as a family, but we don't often eat. We often eat at different times, sitting in front of the television or separately when it suits us. Or perhaps we also sit at the table, but not always. These are my ones that I've added. Children would have to eat what they were given. And here I've said, Father was always given the largest piece of bacon, and there was no picking and choosing is your evidence. And the difference, I would say, is that nowadays children are able to be much more picky about their food, and in many families refuse to eat certain foods. When I grew up, it shows how old I am, children had to eat what they were given. I did not choose what to eat. You ate it, you sat there till it was eaten. Some of you may come from families like that too. Good for your mums. The next one, the children had to eat in silence. They were expected to eat in silence as your evidence. And nowadays, I think it's very different. Family enjoys chatting about the day's events. The children often loud and chat to each other as well as their parents. And similarities and difference. Children were expected to show good manners. I'd say there are similarities there today. The only time the children were allowed to speak was to say please and thank you. I would say modern families, we are also expected to say please and thank you, but sometimes we forget and the atmosphere is much more relaxed. So you get the idea, and you've been able to pick out the information which shows us how very different life was in the 19th century and lay it out in a clear and sensible way. If you had finished all of that and you had time, and I don't expect you all to do that because it was a challenging exercise I gave you, especially the last one, you didn't have to carry on, but some of you might have. And I did suggest that you might learn new vocabulary. And I did say when you read a passage, don't worry if you don't understand every word as you read. You should be able to get the general sense. But for a homework exercise, look up new words and learn them. If you didn't know pairings, which were the peelings of a potato, write it down. If you didn't know the word utensil, note it, write it down and learn it, because that is the best way to learn English. And finally, as a challenge to those who enjoy writing, you did not have to do this, ladies, but in view of the fact that we finished last term on descriptive writing, creative writing, I've given you this as a bit of a reminder, which was describing a family meal. Now, I did just put that caveat in. It doesn't have to be your family. You can make up a family and setting, but make sure it's realistic, that it's not a family I go, oh, come on, that's not possible. It must be a family I can recognize, because imagine that you are writing this for a magazine, for a blog, and I want you to engage your reader as well as just give us the boring facts. I don't want you just to say, we sat down at the table, we had fish and chips, mother did this, dad did that, and we all left. It was delicious. That's boring. I want to be able to see the family members, get a bit of taste of their personalities, add some dialogue, add some description of that food. Don't just say it was delicious. Let me smell it wafting up the warm, moist food, the delicious scents filling the air. I want to really imagine that succulent roast chicken falling apart on the leg as your brother crunches his drumstick or whatever. Imagine it, make it realistic. Right, ladies, and thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Bye-bye.